Okay, next we have Mr. Michael Pasquale, who is currently working as a custodian here in the Little Falls High School. And Mike was in service during World War II, and we'll find out exactly where he went and what he did. Mike, were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted in the Marine Corps in Syracuse. It was about a week before Thanksgiving, 1942. And they kind-hearted, they let me stay home for Thanksgiving.
Well, that was nice.
Yeah, I thought it was too. And then around the 1st of December, I went to Parris Island, South Carolina. I stayed there for 8 weeks, basic training. And then they gave me another 2 weeks vacation to come home. Then I went back to North Carolina, Paris, or Head Knot Point in North Carolina was an air base. Yeah. And I stayed there for about 2 months, training for machine gunner and a bomber. And then by the time I got out of there, somehow or other I got screwed up, and we went by train to Camp Pendleton outside of San Diego, California. Then we was there for another month or so, a little over a month. And then we got on a ship and we started hitting, went to New Zealand.
All right, before we get there, Parris Island, now they've always said that was a very tough place. In fact, back in the 60s, there were some recruits that were drowned in swamps from forced night marches and stuff like that. What was Parris Island like when you were there?
Well, it was kind of tough. It was like sand. It was all mostly sand, and then they put you out in the boondocks for your final basic training, and they'll put you out there in like groups of 3 and 4, and they'll give you a compass, and they'll give you directions, and they'll give you like 3 days to get from one point to the other. And you had to spend about at least 2 nights out in the swamps and with the cottonmouth snakes and whatnot.
A lot of snakes down there?
Yeah, there was at that time no alligators or anything like that, but there was cottonmouth snakes. They were the most deadly things that we run across down there.
Now, when you were there, did you go from Little Falls with a group of people that you knew, or you were all alone?
No,
you just went and that was it?
No, I went to Syracuse, and in Syracuse there was a kid from Utica, Nick Weaver. He's up in Old Forge now. But then the 2 of us went to Syracuse, and then we met, I think there was 8 of us all together. And the rest of the kids from that we met in Syracuse were from Syracuse and the surrounding area around Syracuse.
How old were you?
17.
17, and the rest of the people probably 17, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah. They were kind of young. We were kind of young at the time. And, well, from there we went to South Carolina. And then we went through basic training together. And then we come home together. And then after that we split up. Who went every different way, you know.
I think some of that was deliberate, because they didn't want, in case one particular regiment or company got in a lot of trouble and had a lot of casualties, they wouldn't all be from the same village or city or whatever. You know. So you're out at the West Coast at Camp Pendleton. You got there by train, probably.
Yeah, we went by train, went through all the southern states, Louisiana and Texas and New Mexico, and down through the southern states. And we got to San Diego, Camp Pendleton, which is up in the mountains, cold at night, but nice in the daytime. And like I say, we were there a little over a month. And we did training, advanced training there, probably trying to figure out where to put us.
Yeah.
So then we got on a ship in San Diego and went to New Zealand. We didn't stay in New Zealand a couple days. Then he brought us to New Caledonia. We was there for maybe a week in New Caledonia.
You on shore?
Yeah, yeah. And then they brought us to Melbourne, Australia.
Well, Tony was just here talking. He was in Melbourne too.
Well, that's where I met, that's where I joined the 1st Marine Division
Okay.
in Melbourne, Australia. Before that, they were on Guadalcanal, and they finished up on Guadalcanal, and they come back to Australia for rest area. And then we were the replacements.
Yeah. Probably needed a lot of replacements after Guadalcanal.
Yeah.
That was a rather rough one. Yeah.
And then after that, we went to Peleliu, which is an island. Well, I don't know. It's around New Guinea. It's off of New Guinea. I couldn't tell you how many miles, but it's around New Guinea. It's off of New Guinea, and we fought there.
You went in on the beach with the Japanese defending?
Yeah. First wave, as usual.
First wave. What happened
Lucky.
to this Air Force stuff you were telling me you were going to be a gunner and a bomber? That all went.
That went by the boards.
Yeah.
That all went by the boards. For some reason or other, they forgot all about it. I don't know. They must have been filled up or something. But anyways,
I think you got to go in with the first wave. That was
Yeah,
an honorable
yeah.
position.
yeah. And then after that, after Peleliu, we went back to the Russell Islands. They made that our home base. That's a little island off of Guadalcanal.
I've heard of it, but I
It's,
haven't got.
It's 60 miles from Guadalcanal, off of Guadalcanal, and that was our home base that time. And then we went to Okinawa. From the Russell Islands, we went to Okinawa, and we went there was April 1st, April Fool's Day. We landed there, April Fool's Day. We were lucky there too. And
You missed the Iwo Jima though.
no, yeah, I missed Iwo Jima. Luckily, I missed that.
That was a good one to miss, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there. But Okinawa was pretty good too.
And all this travel by ship, did you ever see any submarine action? There were a lot of ships lost in the Guadalcanal area early in the war, but I think the Japanese Navy was taking a pretty good beating toward the end and were not as active. But
Yeah, but you heard of this Kennedy and his PT-109.
oh yeah, right, yeah.
They used to pull in the Russell Islands. That was they'd go out on their assignments and everything, and they'd be gone maybe a week or so, and then they'd come back, and I've seen them pull in the Bay Area there in the Russell Islands quite a bit. They'd come and go, and the submarines. We seen submarines, but I mean, not in. Never seen them in action. I mean, they're under the water and all that.
Right.
But never. When we hit Peleliu, there was all kinds of ships, a lot of troop ships, all kinds of sub-chasers, PT boats, and aircrafts, and you got a good mixture of everything that you need for combat, and give you support here and there. And that's the way it went. Then
Now, the Japanese, they're very reluctant to surrender. Did you ever see any live ones that came out?
Oh, yeah.
Did occasionally surrender.
yeah, some of them, we've seen them where they'd come out and tell you to kill them.
Yeah.
Just to save face. Like they were funny. They didn't want to lose face. You know what I mean? Just like the Kazamazis there. They wouldn't go back home. you know,
They'd have to crash into something.
that's it. That was it. That was their job, to crash into a plane, a ship, and you know, they go down with the ship.
That was a religious thing with them. They thought
Yeah,
they'd go
it was-
directly to heaven if they
Yeah.
died for the
Yeah.
service of the emperor, and that was number one with them, and they just went for it.
You see them. We see them where they in caves where they committed harry-carry and killed themselves with a knife, and then there was others that well, we took prisoners. Not many, but there were some prisoners. They took some prisoners. And,
How long did it take Peleliu there to get that under control?
then it was about 2 months, I think. We was there about 2 months. I think it was around 2 months to clean that one up. And then after that, well, like I say, we went back to the Russell Islands, and well, we more or less rested, and we went through more training to keep up, and then we went to Okinawa, and we landed in Okinawa, like I say, 1st of April, April Fool's Day, another first wave.
You got all the luck drawing these
Yeah,
first waves.
yeah.
Didn't anybody but the 1st Division ever go in first? Is that why they named it?
I don't know, but I was in the first wave on Peleliu and Okinawa, and we were supposed to get, they gave us 3 days to get to an airport. There's a big airfield, and about 4 or 5 miles where we landed on Okinawa, they had it scheduled that we should be there about 3 days.
Yeah.
And hell, we were there in a day, and no Japs at all.
They all pulled back into
They
the mountains.
did. But after, that's when we run into them, up into
Yeah.
Sherry Castle and Sugarloaf Hill and different places like that there. They more or less went in the center of the island, because one of the reasons I think they said was we were making the initial landing on one side, and there was another division making a false landing on the other side. So they didn't know
Yeah.
who was going to come in.
Right.
So they more or less moved back, and there was some resistance, but not like we saw on Peleliu, you know. But there was some resistance, and like I say, we went through the airport. We got to the airport in perhaps half the time that they expected us to, and but after that, like I say, we went south, and after the airport, we headed south towards the southern part of the island, and down towards Naha, and places like Sugarloaf Hill and Sherry Castle, and there was that's where the Japs were.
And they didn't surrender too well either, did they?
No.
Had to dig them out.
Well, yeah, but in Naha it was more or less street fighting, house to house.
Oh, that was a regular
That was,
city.
yeah, that was a
I
nice.
see.
At one time, the pictures that they showed us before we landed, Naha was a nice city.
Afterwards, it wasn't
Well,
so good.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Somebody's got to suffer, I guess.
I suppose.
Yeah.
That was, the Okinawa campaign evidently was pretty tough. About how long did that take? A couple months to secure the whole island?
We landed there, like I say, in April, and we were there, well, to secure it, yeah. It was about about a little over 3 months, almost 4 months, to secure the island. And then we stayed right there until we were on Okinawa when the war ended. And then in October, in 45, they sent us to China. We went to China to, well, more or less, when we got there, there was Japs in China. Japanese
Yeah,
in China.
they had they had a very large army there in China.
Yeah, and there were some stubborn ones. They didn't believe that the war was over, and we had a little action there, but not too much. Just enough to let you know that things were still alive. And but we were there mostly to take the Japanese that were there and put them on the ships and send them back to Japan. And then I was there from, I think it was October to February. Then in February, I come back to Camp Pendleton, and we landed back in San Diego. They brought us back up into Camp Pendleton, and then we were there maybe a week, and then they put us on a train and went to Bainbridge, Maryland. Got my discharge in Bainbridge, Maryland, and I think it was in February. I got home. It was February the 14th. I was discharged in February 14th, 1946.
So you were in 3.5 years ago.
Roughly, yeah,
Yeah.
3.5.
Did you ever think about re-enlisting and staying in? Some people did, you know.
Well, a lot
Of
of them
course,
did,
many of
yeah.
them died in Korea too.
but-
The first
well,
Marine
that's
Division
true,
took
too.
another first
But,
wave there up the Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah, but if I stayed in, I probably would have put in 20, would have got my 20 years in, and I'd have been had a nice pension today.
Retired.
Sure, I'd have been retired.
Now that business in China, the Chiang Kai-shek's people were hassling with the Chinese
The
communists. and
nationalists, yeah.
As the Japanese army surrendered, whoever could grab their weapons first took them, and that was a lot of trouble over that. And the Chinese communists got a big head start there by that, and eventually, as we all know, by 1949, they took the whole country.
Well,
Did you see any of that action there with the Chinese communists versus the nationalists?
Yeah, they were fighting when we were there, and the communists at that time, they were afraid of the American troops, and we were over in Tinson. It was a pretty good city. It's a seaport in a Yellow Sea, and it's well, it was 15 miles from the China Wall.
Mhm.
So the Chiang Kai-shek's troops and the communists, they were fighting, but neither one of them had much to fight with at that time. And every time the communists would start to get the best of Chiang Kai-shek's troops, we'd go up. We didn't do much fighting, but all they wanted to do is, all we had to do was show us,
Just show up, yeah.
show the American flag, and
Yep.
they'd back up. We pushed them all the way back to into Manchuria and Mongolia, and we stayed on the China Wall. The China Wall.
You actually saw the Great Wall of China?
Yeah, we stayed there. We camped on it's just like a big road up there.
Right on top
On
of
the
the
top, yeah.
I've
Then,
seen pictures of it.
Then every, well, I don't know, every so often there was stairs where you could go down either side and stuff like that. But we stayed on there, and then, I don't know, we were there, well, up to February. And then when I come home, I don't know when it was, but then I see in the paper where Chiang Kai-shek, he didn't want the Marines in there anymore. He didn't want no American troops in China anymore. So, I don't know, the two governments, they were starting to...
Yeah, there was some
They didn't get along or
disagreements there,
something.
as I remember.
But anyways, the United States pulled out of China, and the communists just swept right down, just like a big broom. They come right down and they took everything.
They just,
And today it's communists.
but
if
they're our friends again. You go up to Nichols this week and you can see corduroy sport coats made in China.
Made in Taiwan,
$34.95.
Formosa.
I know because I bought one last month.
Yeah.
And here those same people in 1950 came in on the side of the North Koreans and went against the Marines again, you know. There was a rematch there.
Yeah.
The Chinese did a little better the second time, but it all
Well,
worked out.
I'll tell you, before the war started, there were Marines in China, you know, back before the World War II
right,
started.
yeah.
And when we got there in 45, the Chinese actually dug up, when the Marines left, they left in a hurry.
Mhm.
And
Embassy guards and stuff like that, probably.
The Chinese, they took all the weapons that they found and everything. They buried everything.
Mhm.
And when we got there, they dug them all up and gave them back to us.
Yeah, well, that's
So
pretty,
that was a pretty good thing for them
that's
to do.
pretty good. So you came back in February 1946, and of course, you probably didn't have a job before you left.
No.
So you went out into the employment field. How'd they treat veterans? Everybody was a hero, but there were so many veterans. There were 13 million veterans. And, you know, this...
Well, I
that
don't
was
know.
hard.
I didn't have no problem. I went into, of course, I only went in the fell shoe, the shoe factory,
Mhm.
and I got a job down there, and I didn't have no problem getting a job at that time. Maybe there was a lot of work, and of course, there was still a lot of servicemen didn't come home yet, too, you know.
Yeah, that's
And,
true.
so I had no problem with finding a job when I come home. And then I was there for, I think it was about 14 years. And then I got a job on a thruway for another 14 years.
Oh, did you work on the thruway now?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You should know that.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
We both worked on the thruway
Yeah.
in the late 50s there for a few years.
Yeah.
Back in the old days. Well, we talked with Tony a little bit earlier about the 5220 Club. We didn't get that on the camera, but that was where supposedly for 52 weeks, veterans, if they couldn't get the job they wanted, were supposed to get $20 a week. Now,
Right.
1945-46, $20 was a considerable amount of money, but evidently that wasn't as easy to get. I thought it was just automatic.
No, I'm not sure, but wasn't it, if you couldn't draw unemployment or something, they'd give it to you or something like that?
You couldn't find a job.
Is that what it was? Yeah. Like, I drew some of them, but not too many of them. And, like I say, I forgot just how it went. But of course, I got $300. Tony, I don't know, Tony Raiello must have got it too, but he didn't mention it.
$300, that was a big
I got $300
$100
muster
a
and
month.
outpay.
How did it come $100 a month?
I don't
That's
know,
how it
I even
came
forgot
out.
how I got paid, but I remember it was $300.
You got a bond of $300.
Is that what it was?
Oh, was it?
I forgot how it was.
I think in 1954, I got $100 a month for 3 months. And people would sit in the Central Hotel watching the post office to see when the mail would come across the street in St. John'sville, waiting for that $100 to keep them alive for a while. Well, any celebrations for the veterans when you got back? Anybody say, hey, great thing you did for the country, stuff like that?
No, the only celebration that I saw was in California when a ship docked. They had the bands out, and the Red Cross was there giving us coffee and donuts. That's the only celebration that I saw. Of course, like you take your big holidays. The Little Falls had their parades, you know,
Yeah.
and they honored their veterans. I don't know if any individual outfits, you know, as they come
Yeah.
home, but they did honor them, you know, like as the whole group at, you know, different holidays, Veterans Day and 4th of July and like that.
Yeah.
But
You know, I was thinking the other day, they should probably have had a holiday for World War II. I mean, this was the most tremendous event in the history of the world so far. So they took November 11th, which was World War I, the Armistice Day, and that's what they used to call it, of course. And cheap, they just converted that over into Veterans Day for all veterans. That's pretty cheap of the government to do that, I thought. I didn't think of that, though, until just recently, so I haven't written President Reagan yet with my opinions on it. Hey, Mike, Did you keep up with any of your friends from service?
Well, yeah, like I say, when I went in, Nick Weaver from Utica, he's up in Old Forge now. I go up, I run into him every summer. We go up to Old Forge and we run into him. And there was a guy out in Illinois when my son was going to University of Illinois. We used to go out there and I looked him up. And there's a man down in New Jersey. He wasn't in the Marines. He was a Seabee.
Yeah.
And when we were on Okinawa, they were repairing the airstrips, and I got to know him, and I see him every once in a while down New Jersey. But I got a Japanese flag home with all the names and addresses of the fellows that were in company with me, in the same company I was in. And well, of course now it's been what, 45 years probably.
Been a while, yeah.
You don't know where any of them are now.
No.
So time changes everything.
It does. But at least we've got some records now on tape, so that 50 years in the future, when we're all gone, other people can hear our opinions and impressions. And that was actually what we got this mini grant, this program from the Herkimer Teacher Center for, the Mohawk area. Mohawk Regional Teacher Center, that's the way it goes. Okay. Well, thank you very much,
Well,
Mike.
thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.